What if being happy, especially during times of chaos and crisis, isn't selfish, but deeply necessary? Welcome to Happiness on Tap, where we fill your cup with inspiration, resilience, and real life tools to create your best life. I'm your host, Leann Herron, and in this powerful conversation, Rachel S. Heslin reveals why joy isn't just a luxury, but a vital tool for resilience, healing, and creating a more compassionate world. Rachel served as the Director of Exhibitors for the California Women's Conference. She's also the author of two transformative books, Navigating Life and Rituals of Release. Her TEDx talk, A Defense of Victim Mentality, shifts the conversation from condemnation to compassion in just 6 minutes. Through her work at the Fullness of Your Power, Rachel helps people connect with who they truly are, so together they can co-create a more compassionate and collaborative world. Today we are diving deep into why choosing happiness isn't naive or dismissive. It's essential, even and especially when the world feels like it's burning down. Rachel, welcome to the show. It is so wonderful to have you join us today.
Hello, Leann. I am delighted to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation, so we'll get started right away. Rachel, can you start by sharing what first inspired your fascination with the psychology of identity and experience?
Well, my own experience was very interesting in that I wasn't sure why I did what I did. I was always looking at things. My father's a clinical psychologist, and he taught me at a very early age about the observer. The idea that there's us, and then you can kind of look at what you do so that I could tell there was a difference between what I was thinking and feeling and doing, and then there was me. And I was curious, why did I experience things so much more differently than other people? Why did I do what I did? Why do other people do other things? It's something that's become ingrained as this is the filter through which I look through the world.
Wow, that sounds like it kept your brain going all the time with all these grand questions.
Yeah, it's I am fascinated by why. I want to know, why do people do what they do? Why do I do what they do? And I keep coming up with answers that answer only part of the question. So I'll see something else and say, okay, how does that change things? A friend of mine said that I have a about kaleidoscopic hologram of the world, where if you have two different perspectives, I like looking at it and saying, what is a third perspective that encompasses both? I don't think that anyone's opinion or perspective or identity is wrong, but I do believe they're incomplete. How can I increase my understanding of complexity in order to include a myriad of different experiences, identities? If I associate myself with something over here and you identify yourself with something over here, we are going to value these data points differently. And therefore, our experience of the world is going to be different.
I like how it's almost like a child's mind, that constant why this and why that? And they are just so curious about the world and why everything is the way that it is. And I think so many of us lost that so young in life. Either we were shut down when we would ask those questions, but it sounds like because of your father's background, that really helped grow and spark that curiosity in you. And two, I think if more of us questioned our beliefs, our thoughts, even our identity much younger in life and continue to question things, then our outcomes, like you said, would be very different. Because I didn't start questioning my beliefs, my identity, my thoughts until I was so much older, even into my 40s. Then I was at a point in my life where all I knew was the identity I had been given as a child. Like, I was raised to be a wife and a mother. I didn't have any other choices. I wasn't given any other choices. And so I think if I had been allowed to be more curious and question things and be able to experience things differently, that who knows what the
Ye
future would have looked like.
Yours is a very common experience. Fish don't know they're swimming in water. We grow up not knowing that there are other possibilities. The identity and experience of life are very closely tied. And I think one of the reasons why so many people find it frightening to question, to ask, is the world really the way that I think it is? Was I raised to believe things that may not be true? It starts to impinge on their idea of who they are. And when it's the identity being questioned, it can be scary because if I'm not who I think I am, who am I? The way that I have dealt with it is essentially making my peace with realizing I don't know. I don't know anything. There is a possibility that I am wrong about everything. There is a possibility that it's all a dream. There's a possibility that there's some that there are all sorts of things. However, because I am okay with the possibility of being wrong, I have deliberately chosen a path that I think leads to happiness and empowerment and expansion. I choose perspectives that make me feel good. But it's not a wishy washy, ungrounded spiritual bypassing. And that's something that I think really needs to be differentiated. The spiritual bypassing is saying, I just want to be happy. I shouldn't feel bad things and repression, and I'm just going to ignore anything I don't like. What I choose is looking at my experience, other people's experiences. How does it make sense? Is it congruent with other observations I've made? Does it include all of experience? I personally believe that for all that happiness is crucial to our living our lives, I don't think it is the purpose of life. I believe the purpose of life is to live deeply, fully, embracing everything that comes through and enriching our living in this moment, the experience of being alive.
Hmm. I love that. It is a very different perspective that is warm and welcoming and inviting and curious and expansive and I experienced that when I was at that point where I was questioning my identity, living alone for the first time in my adult life and having to figure out, what is it that I even like? What do I enjoy? What do I want? And just saying, what I don't have to have all the answers and I don't have to bring the past into my future. I get to choose how I experience every day.
I like to talk about the importance of play, where as you're seeking your identity, it's not fear-based. It's not, I have to fill in the pieces, but like you talk about that childlike wonder and curiosity. What do I like? What does feel good? What lights me up? And giving yourself permission to try things without knowing if it's what you want. It's like, well, we'll give it a shot. If I like it, I'll add it to my toolbox. If it turns out, yeah, that's not for me, then you know that. But it doesn't mean it's not right for somebody else, but at least you tried.
And then an example that I can give for that was I had never practiced yoga. I had never developed a yoga practice. So I started attending classes. I was going a couple of days a week and I really enjoyed it. But what I found was that I felt like I was just following someone else. I really wasn't learning the purpose. I wasn't learning the skills, the tools. I could mimic or mirror another person, but I wasn't developing, like, what did I enjoy about this? So I stopped attending the classes and I found a park that was near the apartment that I was living in that had these like uneven platforms that you could stand on. And so they'd be all different heights and you could walk from one to the next to the next to the next. And so I would use those different platforms for my yoga poses. And just being at a park, surrounded by nature, watching kids play soccer, seeing people out with their dogs, visiting people who would come by and ask me what I was doing, that's where I developed my yoga practice because it was what I enjoyed. Or in my kitchen at night with all the lights turned down and a couple of candles lit, and was like, this is what I enjoy. I don't need to be in a room with 20, 30 other people that I am mirroring.
Yeah, that embodiment and exploration of your own essence is good for you. And I happen to believe it's good for the world. The more that you model that beingness of self, the more you give others permission to step into who they are. I mean, I love the Thurston quote of do not ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And you mentioned in the opening the idea, the observation that our world seems to be burning down. It's our humanity that will save us. The more human and secure in who each of us is as our individual selves, the easier it is to connect with others, to build community, to reach out, allowing yourself to become more vulnerable so that others can carry you and you can reach out to others to carry them. We're all walking each other home for another quote. And happiness really is key to finding that divine spark in yourself, nurturing it, seeing it in others, nurturing it in others. And collectively, we come together and we are the light.
That is for certain. It was something I thought for a very brief moment in life when I was struggling with anxiety and depression. It was trauma based. It was my body's reaction to a traumatic situation. But it was the first time in my life that I felt like I had lost that light. And I remember when I had started working at this law firm that I was working at the time, when I would meet with the partners, like for annual evaluations and whatever, they would always say, you're like sunshine. You come in every morning and you don't even have to turn the lights on. You light up the room. And I loved that I felt that way. I loved that I exude that. Other people noticed it. They received it until it seemed like somebody had snuffed out my light. And I felt dark and heavy. And I thought, what happened? Where did my happy go? Where did my resilience and ability to bounce back when things were rough and be able to keep moving forward? But what it really was my body telling me that I needed to listen because I had spent a lifetime pushing things down and not listening to my body, not taking care of myself. And so once I realized that I wasn't so much questioning what I had lost, but I was now receiving a message from my body, and I started to listen and I started to learn, then the clouds rolled out and my light came back. So it doesn't leave us. We just got to sometimes
Yeah.
remember it's there and give ourselves grace and just do
Yeah.
what brings you joy. And so that's what I did. I found a lot of my childlike joy. When I would have a down day, I would break out coloring books and crayons and stuffed animals and turn on the Disney Channel and just be in
Yeah.
coloring and watching cartoons and laughing and feeling joy, or being outside watching the birds and the butterflies and the lizards, and just remembering those things that brought me joy, and that I knew that that joy was still inside me. I just had to bring it back out.
Yeah. I have found my body can be such an important source of information, especially when I'm acting in a way that's not congruent with who I want to be. It really the tension, uh, negative health effects. Some ways it kind of reminds me of my husband used to always go, 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 was constantly setting himself aside to take care of everybody else. And then when there was a moment to actually rest and relax, he'd get sick because his body was saying, "Hey, you matter too. We're gonna make it so you have to stay in bed and take care of yourself."
And it's funny how we don't listen to those signs, because I was the same
Yeah,
person my whole life, everybody else before myself. And then I would be forced by something in my body or an injury that I would have to rest. And it was
yeah,
so hard because then we feel guilty because we're not still doing all the things that need to be done. And so that guilt just makes it so much harder to just give ourselves grace and peace and rest. And but I think learning the hard way was the best way I could learn that. Was that, okay,
yeah,
I have not listened long enough.
yeah. There are so many things that even if we know in our head, we don't truly know until we experience going through the trauma. I remember one time I was telling a friend, "I really wish I could have the epiphany without the trauma." And his response was, "If it's a big enough epiphany, it might require the trauma, because otherwise we just coast and it's easier just to keep doing what we're doing because it's a habit."
Mhm. And that is so absolutely true. So many people feel guilty, like we were just talking about,
Right.
experiencing
Yeah.
joy when there is so much suffering in the world. Why do you believe happiness is not just okay, but actually beneficial during these times?
My question regarding things of uh, reactions of guilt is, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of feeling guilty? Do you need to prove that you care? Or do you want to make a difference? Sometimes guilt comes with a feeling of helplessness. I can't do anything about this thing that's terrible. Therefore, I feel guilty that I can't do anything about it. I feel guilty that I don't care as much as I think I should care because that means that I'm a terrible person. The truth is that there is more sorrow in the world than any one heart can hold. Every day, terrible things are happening. And every day, there is also beauty and kindness and love. People talk about the two wolves. There are two wolves inside you. One is fear and hate and negative, and the other one is joy, faith, playfulness, love, and the answer of which gets stronger is which you feed. That is the case, and it's more than that. I think one of the problems is our misguided sense of separation. We think we're in this alone. We think that if I do not hold the sorrow for everything, then no one will hold the sorrow. The truth is that each of us has our own sorrows, and each of us has our own joys. We are handed them in the measure that is for us. I like to say that it's our dreams and aspirations that give us branches to reach to the sky. But it truly is our sorrows that root us into the earth. And we need that groundedness. I believe that grief has a purpose. It allows us to honor what we have lost because it matters. Even if our dreams and hopes did not come true, those dreams and hopes matter. We need to strive to move forward. Guilt is not about moving forward. Guilt is about wearing a mask. Guilt is about denying reality. The I should have done something, but I didn't. The only way we can make things better is if one of the reasons that we're feeling guilty is because we have acted out of congruity with who we want to be. We need to acknowledge, have we done harm? We need to do what we can to try to make amends. Sometimes it's not possible, and that is added to our sorrows. But the most important thing is to do things differently. If you're feeling guilty about, like we were talking about earlier, of the state of the world and not doing more, come back and reconnect with what is sincerely and deeply calling to your heart. What is your thread of the tapestry that we are all weaving together? For the last several years, I've been focusing on my family. My husband passed away unexpectedly, and I suddenly had 5 kids who were all turning 18 who had lost their father figure. They're all that age because I have an biological, unadopted, and 3 bonus that we kind of just took into our hearts and our home, and that was my focus. They still hold pride of place in my heart. When I was younger, I did more activist stuff, and that's what 20-year-old me was called to do. We have different seasons of contribution as well. Now I'm moving into teaching and supporting others, especially visionary leaders who are feeling so lost in this time. For those who care so deeply about the world, it can ache knowing that you can't fix it all. Many of it, many of what is happening now is part of the process. So I help these people reconnect with the essence of their contribution and make their peace with that which is not theirs to do. We're in this together, and focus on your thread.
Thank you so much for sharing your story of your loss and your focus and about the differences in focuses over our different seasons in life, because that really is something that I think we tend to forget about. We had different focuses when I was in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s, and my ability to do to be for everyone else changes, and my ability to be active in the world as the greater whole of the world, even if it's okay, I can't fix what's going on in this political climate. I can't fix what's going on in wars. But what I can do is focus on maybe something that's going on local, volunteering at a local food bank, or spending time working at maybe an animal control. I mean, there are little things that can be within our values, our abilities, our time, that still make a huge impact in the world. But thinking that we are not enough because we're not doing enough for the earth as a whole. So pick up a piece of trash. You're doing
Yeah.
something for the earth as a whole.
Yeah, I was going to say what you were mentioning earlier, you walking in and radiating happiness is valuable in and of itself. There have been so many times when I was feeling down and somebody smiled and I felt better and became easier for me to smile as well.
And we have to remember that. I want to talk about your TED Talk. I watched it. I really enjoyed it. As I mentioned to you, I had found you on another podcast, really enjoyed your conversation. Then I watched your TED Talk and it was wonderful. And so, I just felt inclined to reach out to you and connect with you. And I'm glad that I have, and I'm enjoying this conversation. But I want to mention your TED Talk, A Defense of Victim Mentality. You reframed a difficult concept with compassion. How does reframing play a role in sustaining happiness?
So much of what we see in the world, how we see it, how we interpret it, how we experience life is dependent on the meanings that we assign to things. So many actions don't mean anything until we decide what they mean. Easy example, somebody cuts you off in traffic. You could choose to think about what a terrible person they are and how dare they, and they are so rude. You could alternatively choose to slow down a bit and just give them space and say, you know what? I hope their day gets better. It's all a choice. How do you choose to respond to what's out there? I think one of the most damaging factors in today's political climate is people trying to define other people, where they say, because you look like this, because you voted like this, because you said this, because you like this book or this movie, therefore, that means that you are this type of person, and therefore I don't like you. That's not humane. That's not happy giving. And it's not respectful. I like living by Hillel's version of the golden rule, which is do not unto others that which is hateful to yourself. I know that when other people say, oh, well, you're this age or look like this or this gender or this background, therefore you must be this type of person, it doesn't feel good. And because I know it doesn't feel good for me, I make an effort not to do it to others. I believe that if we reached out with curiosity, wanting to understand other people's experiences, it would be so much easier to work together. But it becomes a cycle of said this about me. It's like, oh, yeah, well, that's not me. And you're like this. I was like, hold on, breathe. A question that I ask myself in those situations because I know this is shocking, but I actually am human and don't always react the way I want to. But I pause and ask myself, what is the energy that I want to contribute to the world? It makes such a difference. So, coming back to the reframing of happiness, I'd say that is my number one. What is the energy that I want to contribute to the world? And I want to be love. I want people to feel safe. I want people to experience happiness. It is so energizing. Because let's face it, if you're feeling shame and guilt and awful about everything, it's exhausting. And it is so much harder to make a difference, especially when you are trying to hold a vision that you do not yet see in front of you.
Mm.
That's when it becomes vital. If you look around and let's face it, there's a lot of pain, there is a lot of tragedy, and it is real and it is here. I happen to believe we are moving through a time of great transition. I describe it as we are wallowing in caterpillar goo because the caterpillar does have to disintegrate in order to transform into something that can fly. And it's the vision and the happiness and finding, deliberately seeking out the evidence that there is more to life than tragedy. There is more to life than pain. There is beauty, there is community, there is love, and there is so much worth fighting.
Absolutely. Your example, how you were talking about how we react or we respond to other people or the world around us. One thing I have taken with me throughout my life is to embrace experience and see it through a different set of eyes. And so, like you were talking about being cut off by somebody, and we can either respond or react or be angry or yell at them or whatever it is, how we react or respond, or we can take a breath and have a little compassion and understand that what is going on in their life is what is making them do what they are doing. And it is nothing that we can control or question or should question. And I'm taken back to two separate situations in my life. When my daughter was 17, just getting ready to turn 18, she was involved in a serious rollover accident. And we had been trying to reach her and trying to reach her. And finally, somebody answered her phone that had found it laying on the mesa and explained that they thought she had been in an accident. And it wasn't far from our home. So we immediately jumped in the vehicle and raced through town, avoiding stoplights and stop signs. And we're probably traveling at 80 miles an hour through a very small town. Our focus wasn't on everyone else's safety. Our focus was on my child was involved in a rollover, and I don't know if she's alive, dead, pinned, hurt. And so when I'm driving and I come across somebody that is cutting in and out of traffic, I do exactly what you say. I slow down and I let them be ahead of the situation and understand that there is a reason that they're doing whatever it is they're doing. And it is not mine to judge or question, but it is mine to protect myself and maybe even those around me just by slowing down. And so I take those things with me whenever I'm out in the world and I remember those things. And so another bad story situation was one of my boss's daughter had been murdered in a situation that never should have happened. She was an innocent person, but they deemed it as road rage. And so if I'm in a vehicle with somebody else that's driving and their reactions or their responses to react because of the way somebody else is driving, I take that minute, get them to, calm down and take that breath. And I share that story. And it's my opportunity to remind people that we are only in control of our actions. And lashing out or throwing somebody the finger or rolling down a window, those things can end our life in a moment. And so I just try to be that voice of reason and compassion, if I can make that change in the world.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Yeah, if my husband had a similar experience of understanding why people sometimes speed. When I went into labor and he was at a friend's house 2 hours away, and he says he's pretty much teleported to get there.
I think
Changes
when we
perspective.
take a minute to remember why we have done something, then it helps us have a little more compassion for someone else.
Yeah. I find it useful if I'm feeling triggered by something somebody else does, and I get really upset about it. That has become a signal for me that I need to back up and look at myself. If I'm feeling that strongly judging somebody else, it's usually something in myself that I don't like. I can't change the other person, but I can use that as a tool to recognize, what am I avoiding? What am I hiding from? Where am I out of alignment? And how can I be who I want to be? As I had a friend who said the more honest he is with himself, the more forgiving he is of others.
Yeah, that is the truth. And I find that within myself, whether it's even if I'm not triggered by somebody else, but I start to pay attention when I am triggered. Like, where is this really coming from? Why am I letting this bother me so much? What is coming up? And I just try to befriend those feelings and invite them in and have a seat and let's talk and let's figure out where this is coming from. And I've learned a lot from listening. And I also rely on all of the tools in your toolbox, which you were talking about earlier, that we have available to us to, move some of those things through our body and release them and to, question, is this within my values? And, there's just so many things that we can develop in ourselves to make us better people. So
Collecting them as we go.
what are some common misconceptions about happiness that you would like to dispel?
The first one that comes to mind is that it's shallow, where you picture someone who's like da 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 da. Da. It's like, well, obviously they don't live in the real world because they're like happy all the time and da 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 da. I actually had this discussion with someone who said she wasn't quite sure what to make of me because I smiled so much. And I told her the reason I smile so much is I allow myself to cry. Happiness can be a choice, and happiness can also be a way of being. It can be trained because that's it. People talk about the set point of happiness. There have been a lot of studies shown that say people have a set point of happiness and something happens and it's great, and then they go back to whatever their baseline was. However, it has been shown you can cultivate a greater capacity for happiness through flow states. Flow states are when you are completely immersed in the present moment, when there is a dissolution of a sense of self. You aren't aware of time passing, and awareness and action seem to merge. So when you are fully embodied in the present moment, it resets things. And the more often you do this, the easier it becomes to increase your ability to be happy.
Yeah, that is very true and very, like you said, it takes a little bit to develop that, but when you practice it and you feel that shift in your flow state, and it just becomes simple and around you, feel it, see it, are attracted to it. And like you said, that simple, just smiling in the presence of others. Instead of them questioning why you're smiling, it makes them smile.
Yeah. When your happiness is authentic and from the heart, it radiates. That's something else when you were talking about myths about happiness. The fake it till you make it has limits, because if the way that you're faking it is ignoring the pain, pushing it down, pushing your needs down, all of these things that we've talked about, that's not happiness. That is a mask of pretending to be happy. And it doesn't have the same impact either on your life or those around you because people can tell.
Yeah, that is very true. We can only say, I'm fine for so long. Um, and we either start to believe it or people around us really see that you're not fine. And I
Yeah.
think, too, another myth or misconception is happiness is for somebody else.
Oh,
You know,
of
we
the deservingness of it.
deserving. Yeah. Like, I don't deserve to be happy. And so that's another hard one, um, when we
Oh,
feel
yeah.
that way.
And the see, my response to I don't deserve something is a bit different than most people I know, because my response is none of us deserve anything. Therefore, anything we have is a gift. The antidote for I don't deserve is I'm grateful for what I have and grateful for everything.
Yeah, and that makes such a huge difference in how we go through our day. It's that choice. I can choose to be miserable. I can choose to be sour. I can choose to be angry. I can choose to be sad.
That actually brings up something else I was talking to someone just this week about, is they were afraid of being inauthentic, that if they chose to be happy, then all of the terrible things they felt earlier, that they felt so awful, didn't really matter or didn't exist or they weren't real. And it makes me think about it because I do understand the desire to be authentic. And I also think that people don't understand what feelings are. You experience your feelings, but you are not owned by them. You are not your feelings. Like, I know certain cultures, they don't say, I am angry. They say, I am feeling anger. And that seems a much healthier way of experiencing things because I believe that our emotions are incredibly valuable sources of information. I've talked about how when I'm triggered, it's like, oh, I'm angry or judgmental. That is a piece of information that I need to look at where I'm not being congruent. If I'm feeling sad, what is it that's triggering the sadness? Is it something that wants to be felt and acknowledged? Or is it something that I am dwelling on in order to justify something or fulfill a narrative? Do I want that narrative? Do I want to choose a different narrative? I like the idea of being in relationship with our feelings, both emotional and physical, and our experience as a whole. It's dynamic, it's complex. What is our intention? What is our choice? Being receptive to information and then choosing what do we do with that information? How do we want to live our lives? And in service of what?
That is such a valuable way to reframe our thinking. Like you said, I am angry. When you give it a name, uh, instead of saying feel anger, you're giving it its own identity, and it's harder to question where these things are coming from when you name it. I really like how you change that to I feel.
Feel the emotion rather than I am the emotion, pretty much.
Hmm. And those are good practices to help us develop that curiosity, is to be able to, even if you have to, like, actually write that down. Like, what are you feeling? And look at
Yeah,
it that
journaling is
way.
such a useful tool because I know whenever I get the hamster wheel going in the head, if I put it down on paper, then I can physically look at it and separating it out that much, then I can feel the feelings, look at the thoughts behind the feelings, and then kind of work through what's actually going on in there.
Yeah, I didn't used to be very good at journaling, and that was a childhood issue. But what I could do was mind map my
Oh,
feelings.
yes.
So that's my analytical accounting brain. I could make it into an org chart or a mind map and look
I
at it
like that.
that way, as opposed to journaling a paragraph and just letting my all my emotions come out as word vomit. I could
Yeah.
write a word down and then put little legs off of it and figure out, is this my story? Is this somebody else's story? How am I attached to this? Am I just exaggerating my feeling? I could see it in a different perspective. It was like taking off one pair of
Yeah.
glasses and putting on my readers and going, okay, now I can see this for what it is.
Yeah.
And so, I just learned how to make journaling work for me.
Yeah. And different people process in different ways. Maybe it's art, drawing or painting or something. Maybe it's physical action, dancing or going for a run, something that really helps you process whatever's going on.
And that kind of leads to my next question. I was going to ask you if you could share some practical strategies that people can use to cultivate joy and resilience when we're feeling so overwhelmed. And I like, just like you said, it could be art, it could be going for a run. There's so many things that are available to us that are free, that are within our reach. So, what are some other strategies you would suggest?
I really like coming into the present moment. What do you see? There's a journaling prompt that I sometimes like to use where you just start by describing the room that you're in. It's like, I see these things, I feel this. Really becoming aware of this moment. And sometimes things come off of it, but that's kind of a recentering. A lot of it is practicing what you notice. When my husband died, I became an expert at being grateful that things weren't worse. Things like his mother had passed away some months earlier and left us enough money to pay off our debt, including the house, so that I had the grace and the ability to be there with my kids. I didn't have to work. Things like he got to the ambulance and he had his heart attack in the ambulance. What if he had died half an hour earlier in the house with the kids? So many things I became grateful things aren't worse. Grateful for the little things. Oh my God, I am so grateful for indoor plumbing. Things we take for granted. Back to the Einstein quote, either nothing is a miracle or everything is. Notice what is around you that makes you happy. I'm reminded of Dr. Keltner's work on awe, AWE, and wonder. Dr. Keltner is the head of the UC Berkeley, uh, what is it, Science Center for Greater Good Science Center, one of those things there. And in his book, Awe, he talks about all the research he did and discovered that unlike pleasure, which has diminishing returns, cultivating awe grows your capacity for it. Therefore, if you want to be happy, the more that you are honest with yourself in the moment and choosing to notice things that make you happy, things that spark happiness, and sometimes just the feeling of happiness itself. What does happiness feel like? For me, it's expansive. For me, it's light. It's weightless. It's also, and this is something I've developed more over the last few months, for me, happiness feels grounded. It feels solid. It feels strong. And the more you practice, the more it becomes part of your daily experience and who you are and how you live your life. Reset that set point.
Yeah. I I think for me, because I've had people ask me, like, if I'm on another podcast, like, being the name of my podcast is Happiness on Tap, and what does that mean for me? Why did I come up with that name? And for me, it was choice. It was that I get to wake up every day with choice. But I go back to I had a similar loss. My husband lost his father right after we had been married and right before I was experiencing my trauma that had gotten so severe that I actually had to resign my position and leave my career field that I had been in for 13 years. And because of his passing, we had the financial ability for me to be able to do that, for me to take time to heal what was going on, to listen to my body, to rest, to become educated, to understand trauma, to all these things. We had the ability to do that. And I had choice in front of me. Did I have to go back to work right away? Did I have to choose to go back to the same career field? Or were there other choices available on my horizon? And did I have time to look into all of those different choices and choose the path that I wanted to walk? And so I think that was part of where I named this podcast was choice. I make choices all day, every day. And whether that's to be sad and be okay with that, and sometimes that's what I need to do. Sometimes I need to cry into a pillow. Sometimes I need to scream. Sometimes I need to just be, like you said, just be in the moment and experience everything going on around me and acknowledging what that is and how it affects me and how I can affect it. And so learning those techniques, like looking around a room and acknowledging to my right, I have this giant stuffed sloth and it has the biggest smile on its face. And if I get frustrated, the computer's giving me problems or whatever the case may be, all I have to do is glance to my right and here's this cute little sloth just having a happy day and okay, I can stop. I can breathe. I can acknowledge my butt in the chair, my feet on the floor, the sun shining through my tapestries on my windows, the colors that are radiating in the room. So I choose my happiness.
So important.
How do you personally navigate moments when your happiness feels at odds with global or local crises?
Yeah, for just on a personal level, I send love. Send love and support to those that are on the ground, to those that are doing the work. I am blessed with friends who are making such a difference in the world, and I accept that everybody dies. It's hard, but it's true. And then come back and look at, am I doing everything that I can do in my corner? My little piece of the puzzle, my thread of the tapestry, come back to that beingness. Some people are warriors. I'm a gardener. That happiness is part of holding that vision that I spoke of earlier, of the world that we are all trying to create, to bring about, that carries us all. So coming back and realizing I need to focus on my light, not to hold it safe, but to radiate it, to nurture that light, knowing that it nurtures others' lights and that it is valuable just in virtue of its being itself and being the light.
Mm, I love that. And that is so powerful. When you were talking about it and you were saying, I send love, I send light. And that may be all we can do in tough moments. That may be what we are capable of doing at that moment. But I think about this energy field that we are all a part of. We are all energy. And if we are all able to send a little bit of that energy that can radiate out from us into this greater energy field, then we are doing so much that we don't even realize that we are doing, and that
Yeah.
other people will receive that energy. And even if it's I send somebody a message and just say, I am sending you peace. I am sending you energy and thoughts of quick healing in your time
Yeah.
of struggle. That those words alone hold so much energy for the person receiving it.
It's like, I'm thinking of you and I love you and you matter to me.
And we are all capable of that if that is all we are capable of in a day. And some days there are tough
And some
days.
days, yes, some days it's important to look in the mirror and say those words.
Absolutely. So what is one key takeaway you would love listeners to remember about choosing happiness in a chaotic world?
First of all, I'd bring it down to two. First of all, it is possible. It is possible to be happy even while the world is burning down. I don't know that it's a good idea to try to always be happy, but happiness is possible. And the other is that it is good to be happy. It is good to allow happiness to be part of the fabric of your life. And it has multiple benefits. And feeling good is good. I'd
Absolutely.
say that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, it really does. And it's okay, give yourself permission to be happy, to feel happy, to experience happy. Where can people find you, Rachel? I want to make sure to include good contact information in the show notes.
You can find me in LinkedIn as Rachel S. Heslin, and my website is thefullnessofyourpower.com.
I will also include a link to your TEDx talk. And you also mentioned that you have a free gift you'd like to offer to our listeners.
Yes, it's called Reconnect with Now, a walking meditation. This was something I made for myself because I'm one of those people, if I sit still for too long, I start going over my grocery list. So I created this 10-minute meditation to essentially do what I've been talking about here. How do I reconnect with the present moment? What am I feeling? What am I hearing? What am I seeing? And bringing that into presence, and it slows down all the brain chatter and makes it easier to kind of reset and decide, okay, now that I'm back to beingness, what now? What are my next steps? What is my heart want? What is calling to me?
Thank you so much. I will include a link to that as well in the show notes. Rachel, I want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your compassion, your perspectives with us today. This conversation is such a reminder that happiness isn't about ignoring the pain of the world. It's about fueling ourselves with joy so we can face it with courage and love. And for those of us that want to connect more with Rachel, be sure you check out her books, again, Navigating Life and Rituals of Release, and her TEDx talk, The Defense of Victim Mentality. And you can also explore her work at the Fullness of Your Power. All of that information will be included in the show notes. To all of my listeners, remember choosing happiness isn't selfish. It is one of the most important, powerful contributions you can make to a better world. And until next time, keep your happiness on tap. Rachel, thank you again for your time today.
Thank you. This has been lovely.